This episode is brought to you by Prime. Obsession is in session. And this summer, Prime Originals have everything you want. Steamy romances, irresistible love stories, and the book-to-screen favorites you've already read twice. Off Campus, Elle, Every Year After, The Love Hypothesis, Sterling Point, and more. Slow burns, second chances, chemistry you can feel through the screen. Your next obsession is waiting. Watch only on Prime.
When we get pregnant, there are so many expectations and thoughts about the pregnancy that goes through our minds. This includes the health of our baby and the what-ifs. Sometimes the unexpected happens and we deliver our baby prematurely. Today we're discussing breastfeeding a preemie. We're the boob group.
I use a breast pump.
I hand express milk for my baby.
I exclusively breastfeed.
I use a nipple shield.
I breastfed after a C-section.
I use a milk bank.
I breastfeed in public whenever I feel like it.
I pump at work.
I breastfeed with a cover.
I breastfeed twins.
I give my baby bottles.
I made my own supplemental nursing system.
I supplement with formula.
I talk to my baby while I breastfeed.
I'm breastfeeding as a survivor of sexual abuse.
When I have extra milk, I share it with other moms.
We are equal.
We are
the Boob Group.
Welcome to the Boob Group. We're here to support all moms wanting to provide breast milk to their babies. I'm your host, Preemie. I'm also the founder of the Moms Pump Here Nursing Room Locator app, which helps moms all over the world to find great places to pump and breastfeed their babies. If you haven't yet, we encourage you to download the new Mommy Media Network app, which gives you easy access to all our episodes. You can also subscribe to our podcast through iTunes, so all our latest episodes download to your mobile device automatically. And if you're on iTunes, please leave us a review so other moms can learn about us. Let's meet the mamas joining us today for our conversation. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Hi, my name is Amber Starr Merkins, and I am a mom of 2 children, ages 7 and 3. I live here in Brooklyn, New York, and my second child was born at 28 weeks, and she was in the NICU for 6 months. And she's now a healthy, happy 3-year-old, and she breastfed until she was 2 years old, starting off, obviously, with a very bumpy start, but it happened. And I'm also a postpartum doula and certified breastfeeding counselor, and I work as the New York outreach coordinator for Mother's Milk Bank Northeast, which is a regional milk bank serving 10 states, including New York. We provide pasteurized, screened human donor milk to hospitals and outpatient families, including 8 hospitals currently in New York City and 20 in the state. And that's me.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
Hi, my name is Hillary Clark, and I am mom to Iona. And Iona was born a micro preemie at 27 weeks and stayed in the hospital for 80 days. She first got on the boob on August 2nd, about a month and a half into our stay at the NICU, and it was a long road trying to breastfeed this sweet little preemie, but we got there, and she's still a breastfeeding baby today at 16 months.
That's awesome. Chicks.
I know, right? And hey, everyone, I'm Sunny. I'm producing today's show, and I actually have some experience with today's topic because I have 4 kids total, but my last 2 kids are twins, and now they're almost 3. They'll actually be 3 next month, but they were born technically as preemies, but they were born as 35-weekers, so they were actually right on the border. It was interesting when I was pregnant. I remember my perinatologist was saying, because I was so concerned about having really small twins and going through the NICU. I knew a lot of twin parents that's exactly what happened to them. And so I said, okay, well, what is, the week mark? What week mark am I aiming for here to not have to go to the NICU? And she said, well, it's right around 35 weeks, but she's like, you can't, take that to the bank because, there are older children, that were born later that still need the NICU. But she said usually around 35 weeks. So I must have got that in my head somehow when I was pregnant, because I was like, just make it to 35 weeks, make it to 35 weeks. And they came out at 35 weeks in a couple days. So didn't need the NICU, which was helpful, but they still weren't able to latch. So I can certainly talk about my transition and being able to provide my own breast milk, and then, getting them to the point where they tandem fed, which they did for almost 3 years. So.
Awesome. And you just stopped too.
Awesome.
You just stopped.
I know.
So I'm your host, Preemie Amard, and I have 3 children. My oldest is 14. I have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old. So my children are a little bit older, but I breastfed all of them, and they all were full term. So I'm sort of like the outsider in this conversation. But, I have tons of friends and, people I know through the mommy world that have had this experience. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation, and, hopefully we'll be able to provide moms listening with great tips and resources they can look for if they have a preemie. Thank you all for being here.
From athletic stuff like a full court pickup game, swish, to athlete-ish stuff like a half-mile stroll. Get those steps in. Head to Sierra or Sierra.com for the brands you want at the prices that let you do it all. From athletic to athlete-ish, Sierra's got it.
All right, so before we kick off our conversation today, we're going to talk about a news headline. And I'm a big fan. Moms that are able to pump and pump consistently for a long period of time, or go back to work and pump, I am just in awe of you guys, because it takes a lot of effort to do that. And we want to highlight a mom that was just so dedicated to her baby and pumping for her baby, even though her baby was sick. So this happened, it may have been over a year ago, but still, this story is still a very powerful story. And this happened in Nebraska. And a mom, her name is Demi. She had a baby 2 months early, and baby Leo was his name. He spent 10 months in the NICU, and he was diagnosed with a birth defect that basically there wasn't any skin that developed over his organs. And so it's very rare, but he was in the NICU for 10 months. And during that time, his mom was pumping profusely for him. And he really wasn't taking to the breast milk very well. And eventually he passed away. And it's a sad story, when we just take it at that. But the mom, Demi, decided to donate all of her breast milk. And that's really the happy part of this story, is she actually donated, get this, 17,503 ounces, which equals about 131 gallons of milk. So when you think about like a dairy section of
the whole aisle,
yes, of your grocery store, that's pretty much what you're talking about, which is amazing. And just think about all the babies she was able to help and in doing so. So wanted to talk about that. Obviously wanted to give some props still to Demi for doing this and helping out so many babies. But what do you think when you hear that number? I mean, it's tough to pump. I mean, I've pumped. I pumped for my preemies. I didn't pump that much. Just the sheer dedication of what Demi did. Priya, what do you think?
Well, I remember pumping and just, it's so tough. You're dealing with all your, the craps in your nipples and just, trying to keep up the supply for your baby. I can't imagine, physically what she went through trying to get all that milk out, but just emotionally and mentally, how harrowing and both exhausting that might have been for her. To know that, my son, well, she was pumping while her son was in the NICU, but even afterwards, having to continue to pump like that, or wanting to continue to pump like that, was very harrowing of her.
Yeah, that's true, because she didn't pump all of that probably in those 10 months. She probably kept pumping afterwards. That would take a lot. That'd take a lot to continue to do that.
Yeah, it's such hard work to pump milk. And then when your baby passes, it's the milk is often just such a strong and important connection to your baby. I mean, throwing it away can be extremely painful, and for some mothers just unthinkable. And yeah, donating it can be such an amazing way for some moms to find comfort and knowing that their baby's milk will really literally save lives. And when you think about how much a preemie takes in a feed, a lot of times it's very small, sometimes a fraction of an ounce. So that amount of milk is going so far, you know, it's amazing. And milk banks, you know, gratefully accept donations of milk from bereaved families. And there are actually many bereaved moms who do it.
Yeah, I mean, she's a hero in my eyes, you know, because even pumping for a baby, primarily who is in the hospital, who's not home, is even so much more, it's different even than pumping for a child that you're with. I mean, it can be extremely emotional, and I would imagine, I mean, I don't know, but I would foresee that as being quite healing, knowing that she was helping other babies.
Yeah, and it was definitely, if you think about it, it was just her way of staying, continuing that connection. So it was like him being there without him being there, by her doing this. You know,
I mean, I think that for a lot of I know for myself, pumping, even though it was difficult, it gave me a purpose, and it gave me a routine in a really chaotic time. And it gave me a way to help also when I felt like so helpless sometimes. And so, like, you know, the days when I couldn't even, my baby was too fragile to hold. And I think also when you lose a baby, having that almost structure to your life with pumping for a while, and letting that give you some strength, and, you know, kind of framing the experience in a way. It's really, really amazing.
I think that's so interesting. I never really thought of it that way, but so often we view the rigorous pumping schedule as a negative, but you're absolutely right. If everything just seems kind of out of whack and you need, you know, something to structure your day, that could be extremely helpful. So
for myself, my day was structured around pumping and being with Iona when she was in the hospital. And that I knew, similar to Amber, when I couldn't hold her, that I was doing something for her. When I felt totally out of control of everything that was happening, I knew at least I can do that. And so it was a grounding practice for me in a lot of ways.
All right. Well, thanks, ladies, for your thoughts on this. And obviously, you know, a big high five to Demi for doing this and for helping so many babies in the process.
Expedia and Visit Scotland invite you to come experience the beauty that awaits in Scotland. The sweep of wild coastlines, quiet lochs, and untamed landscapes. Fresh cuisine that feels rooted in the land. Come experience the kind of stillness that stays with you long after you leave. Plan your Scottish escape today at expedia.com/Visit Scotland.
Today we're talking about breastfeeding a preemie, and we are pleased to have Amber Starr Merkins, New York Outreach Coordinator for the Mother's Milk Bank Northeast, as our expert. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm so glad you're able to join us today. So this is an important discussion, and I wanted to dive right in. So let's discuss expectations before we get into breastfeeding a preemie. Now, we sort of touched upon this in our featured segment, what our expectations were. So I would love to hear about what your expectations were for your pregnancies before you gave birth and before finding out that you might give birth to a preemie.
I know I definitely expected to breastfeed, and I had breastfed my first child, and I thought it was hard with my first. And one of the things that was hard about it for me was just slowing down and being able to sit still and taking in that time and enjoying, especially at the beginning when it can be so intense and the newborn needs to feed very frequently. And then I was looking forward to, you know, just releasing into that and surrendering to that with my second. But then it turned out everything was very different, and she came very early, and I couldn't even begin to teach her how to breastfeed until she was nearly 2 months old. So you never know. But when she was born, I definitely immediately asked for a pump, and I just sort of didn't even let it enter my mind that I wouldn't try, even though she was, just 2 pounds and on connected to a million machines and everything. It just sort of was the thing that I knew I would do. And then doctors and nurses were definitely validating that in a whole different way, because it was like they told me that my milk was like medicine for her, for very tiny babies. It's not just about the nutrients and, kind of having this close bond with your baby, but it's literally medicine that can save their lives and prevent infection and inflammation. And
it's like gold.
It's not just a term. It's a literal description of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what went on in your mind? So, you had your first baby, everything was normal. And then your second baby, you're expecting everything to be normal. So when did it happen for you where it switched? When did you found out?
Well, it was pretty sudden. I'd had an abnormal blood test of alpha fetal protein around 20 weeks, but we had high-level ultrasounds and an amniocentesis, and they couldn't find anything that would normally be associated with that wrong with my daughter. And so they just said, well, we don't know what's happening. But then about a month and a half later, right when I was hit the 6-month mark of my pregnancy, I just went through a weekend I was actually planning my son's birthday party, and I couldn't feel her moving, and it just felt very strange. And I told a couple of people, and they said, well, but sometimes you just, when you're so busy, it's hard to, you don't feel the baby, or it's probably everything's fine. But I just knew, there was something going on. And so that was over the weekend, and I went into my midwife on Monday and just to check, make sure everything was okay. And it turned out that I had very high levels of amniotic fluid, and the baby's heartbeat was hard to detect. And I was just taken right to the closest hospital. And it turned out that the blood flow in her umbilical cord somehow had reversed flow, which is very rare. But she wasn't doing well, and she wasn't getting anything. So they just took her out. I was wheeled into the operating room, and she was there, a couple hours later.
Wow. And this was 20 weeks?
It was at 28 weeks.
Oh,
and
man.
So it was completely shocking. No real warning. I mean, there was that a little bit of warning that something might be off, but yeah, it was we were just thrown into this whole other world, and you just kind of go with it,
So Sunny, your expectations must have been a bit different too. I mean, when you found out you had twins, did you expect to deliver? I'm probably saying this really naively, but it's good for our listeners. Did you expect to deliver prematurely, or do twins usually come full term? Like, how does it?
Yeah.
Walk us through it.
Right. So I was kind of in denial that my twins were going to come early. Twins, yes, typically do. You do hear about them coming early. And my type of twin pregnancy was called monochorionic diamniotic, which is just fancy for saying that there are two babies in separate sacs but sharing the same placenta. So it's a little bit higher risk because, a lot of fraternal twins, I have identical twins, but a lot of fraternal twins have their own placentas. And that is typically viewed as a much less like high risk. But if you're sharing the same placenta, there's other complications that could happen. And so they told me that no matter what, I was going to have to deliver at 38 weeks. Like even if the babies, hadn't come yet, they were not going to let me go to 40 weeks. So in my mind, I guess 38 weeks kind of became my 40 week. Like I didn't even consider 40 week, but I was trying. I knew they were going to be C-section babies, and I was just aiming for that, 38 week mark. And so in my mind, I had delivered big babies prior, like 9+ pound babies. So I really thought my body could handle it. I guess I was a little bit overconfident in my body's ability because I really didn't have any issues with, carrying the twins. I'd heard horror stories, and it really seemed to me like it was going just as well, if not better, than a singleton pregnancy. And so in my mind, they were not going to come early. They were coming at 38 weeks. And I just kind of had it in my head that that's what was going to happen. And I had no signs that they were going to come early. I was taking a shower in the morning, and when I got out of the shower, water was still leaking. I'm like, what's going on here? And I realized that one of the twins broke her water. So they kind of picked their birthday, which ironically happened to be my dad's birthday. So it actually turned out to be kind of a cool thing, certainly wasn't planned. But I kind of, not predicted, but I kind of assumed that I was going to have some breastfeeding challenges, in the beginning anyways, just because there were 2 babies. So I guess in my mind, I was, I didn't think everything was going to run super smoothly because I was going to have 2 babies. So the fact that they were a little bit early, that was something else that was kind of thrown on my plate, but I wasn't expecting it to be smooth sailing. So I think that actually helped prepare me anyway, because of that.
Wow. And what about you, Hillary? What were your expectations like?
I would say that my expectations were, I was in the process of trying to figure out where I wanted to give birth. At the time, I was set to be with this one midwife group called Park Slope Midwives and deliver at Methodist Hospital. And at the time, I was still trying to decide if I thought that's what I wanted to do. I had actually thought I wanted to do a home birth. I was thinking, oh, if only I could go to Ina May's farm. And it was about 26 weeks and I started to get a lot of swelling and I gained weight kind of quickly. And I was like, is this normal? And everybody I was talking to was like, well, you're almost at 7 months, it's about that time. And I was just starting to kind of wonder about it. My ankle really swelled up and it was, I had an old dance injury. So I was like, oh, it must be just that old dance injury really swelling. And I had to stand.
If you've ever blasted synth beats from your boombox or burned CDs for your besties, this one's for you. As people get older, much like their music tastes, their health needs change. AG1 is the simple daily health drink designed to deliver over 75 essential daily nutrients and pre- and probiotics to support energy, digestion, and mood. So you can make the most out of every decade and dance break. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
Third midwife appointment on June 15th. And it was the first time that they were actually checking my urine. And they checked my urine and they said, oh, you must have done this test wrong. You need to go back and check it again because the protein was outrageously high. And so they had me check it again and they took me right back and she took my blood pressure and she said, you need to go to the ER right now. My blood pressure was through the roof. The proteins were through the roof. And I didn't even really know. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I knew nothing about what would be the eventual diagnosis at the emergency room, which was preeclampsia. I would just kind of, to be perfectly honest, just, gloss over that area in reading the books that I was reading.
Like, this is not going to happen to me.
This is not going to, yeah, exactly. And then I got to the hospital and they're like, so you definitely have preeclampsia. The only cure is delivery. You're not going to deliver right now, but you might deliver in the next 4 days. And I was like, no, I'm not. And so then they admitted me. And while I was admitted, I had a seizure.
Oh, is that normal?
So preeclampsia is technically pre-seizure as far as my understanding. And so not many people get to the point where they have a seizure. I had a very severe form that happened extremely quickly, and all I remember is them they were about to give I think it's called surfactant for the baby, and that's all I remember. And I just ended up going into a seizure in the room, and they emergency C-sectioned me, and I had no idea. And so when I woke up, I just was feeling a bit of discomfort in my belly, and I was like, why does my belly hurt? And ended up in the ICU for a few days without being able to meet Iona. And she was born at 1.9 pounds. She was extremely, extremely underweight. And it was a total shock. It was a total shock. And I don't think I could really even comprehend what was going on for the first couple weeks. So there wasn't really any learning I was going to give birth prematurely. I just did.
Wow. And it sounds like such a scary situation. I'm sure anytime we have all these expectations of what our pregnancy is going to be like, but then just go through this, and I can't imagine the fear that is running through your minds. Like, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose my baby?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was absolutely frightening. Yeah.
So now that your child was born prematurely, what happens in the NICU and at home when it comes to breastfeeding? We'll be right back. Welcome back. Today we're talking about breastfeeding a preemie. So what was your experience like breastfeeding your preemie and also breast pumping? I want to touch upon both of these. I'm sure everything happened so quickly upon the birth of your babies, but how did the hospital provide you with support? What did they walk you through? Was there a lactation consultant there? I mean, what kind of people were there to help you through the situation?
For me, there was an amazing lactation consultant. I was at Maimonides Hospital. She was a NICU nurse, but also lactation consultant. And she kind of reassured me from the start. And I feel like I owe my ability to breastfeed Raya, my daughter's name is Raya, to her, because she really was so encouraging that it could happen in a slow way. You always hear that even if, you're separated for a couple of hours, that it could ruin everything and the baby might not have the same instincts, and your milk might not come in and all this stuff. But she just gave me so many kind words and encouraging words. And that's just, I can't even stress how much that means to a new mom, even if it's, second, third, fourth baby in that state. It was scary. I mean, we were just on labor and delivery. I had to wait for somebody to be available to, wheel me down to the NICU to visit my baby. Couldn't just go whenever I wanted. So I was in the labor and delivery recovering for a few days and pumping when I was up there, pumping by her isolate as well. I would go down as often as I could. But it was clear that she was not going to be coming home with me. And that was very difficult. But in general, everybody on staff was supportive, but they're also doing so many things and taking care of so many babies that there is a certain feeling that, you just kind of have to fit into their schedule. And there were some support groups offered through the hospital where I was. Eventually, Raya got transferred to Columbia Presbyterian, and there were many services for families there. There was childcare that I could bring my son, which was amazing, and he could play in a playroom at the hospital. They have amazing facilities, and they had separate lactation rooms where you could pump, and chairs by the isolate that pull out and you can lie down and take a nap there. I mean, those little things, it's incredible. It felt like a 5-star luxury hotel. And I felt so, just supported. It's amazing what little things can do. And then, family and friends. I had a meal train set up for me by friends, people bringing over food for months.
So they would rotate?
So they would rotate, yeah. And they would either bring over food or order food. And I can't tell you, if you know somebody with a baby in the NICU, that was like an incredible, incredible help and support. And you feel love through food too. I think it's just, a good way to support.
So Hillary, what was your experience like in the hospital? How long were you in the hospital with your baby?
So we were in the hospital for 80 days. Iona was in the hospital for 80 days. I also went there every day, but I was in the hospital for about a week, 2 days in the ICU, followed by the mother-baby floor. So because I was in the hospital, I remember the lactation consultant, she came in and said, "Oh, it's so important to pump. It's so important to pump." And I was in a bit of a haze, and I think I pumped a bit of colostrum for her. But when I got home, we were in the process of also moving. So it was Iona was born on June 16th, and we were moving 2 weeks later. So with everything happening, pumping was getting lost a bit. And I think because there was just so much stress and, still some health fragility on my end, I was not understanding how much I needed to pump in order to kind of generate and keep my supply. So I don't think I got a bit of a late start. And so as a result, I was getting very, very teeny tiny amounts each time I pumped, about 20 ml. And Amber had spoke previously, that preemies don't take very much. So I was pretty much my entire time of the NICU, I was kind of just about at what Iona was taking in. There was a period of time where Iona wasn't eating for about 3 weeks. She was just getting this, I think it's called TPN. Yeah, I'm forgetting the the full name of it. We would just call it like this yellow Gatorade that she was ingesting. But I had to start to do something called power pumping, in which I would pump for an hour, 5 minutes pumping, 5 minutes off in the morning to generate my milk supply. And then moving forward, I would structure my day at the hospital with procedures that were happening in the room, so that I was trying to essentially pump every 3 to 4 hours, and then I would do a power pump at night. So, I mean, that consistently happened pretty much the whole 80 days Iona remained in the NICU, but then it continued. I still had to pump because she was having a hard time with breastfeeding the entire time. She started to do something called non-nutritive suckling on August 2nd. Yeah, so essentially what that means is they allow the baby to start to practice sucking at, I think it was like 32 weeks, Amber. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
I think Iona had to start a little bit later because she had complications with breathing and...
Mm-hmm. It takes them a while, the breathing capability of being able to breathe and suck at the same time and swallow.
Yeah, so the coordination of breath, suck, swallow is quite challenging for a preemie. And so it makes the potential of breastfeeding challenging. We had a few lactation consultants come down, but I actually found them not as helpful as this one amazing lactation consultant who I had come in, recommended to me by some friends. She and a few nurses were like kind of the main support system for breastfeeding. I mean, I remember this one sweet nurse, Melissa, just taking my breast and like pretty much taking my nipple and rubbing it up and down Iona's cheek and nose and face. And I just thought it was the funniest thing, because that was like, we were in the hospital, there was all of these people around, and like, I'm just having like my boob is bigger than this little baby's face. And I remember when Iona started to actually get some milk, it was like a few weeks after she started just practice sucking, my milk supply started to really jump up. And I think that was a big relief, and a big link to really keeping my motivation of pumping up. But it helped my supply when she even was just practice nursing.
I think breastfeeding in the NICU, it's just because of the way a NICU has to run and is set up, even though they're often saying, your milk is the best thing for your baby, and it's really important that you try to give your baby your milk. The way it's set up, it's just very difficult to support a breastfeeding mother in that situation. There's a lot of interruptions. There's a lot of scheduling. There's a lot of times when a baby next to your baby is having a D-stat or some kind of procedure and you get kicked out and then you can't feed or, because you can't be there when that's happening. Or they have to do rounds and you miss that feed because you can't be in the NICU during rounds. It's, or it just, you can't be feeding during rounds. You can't be in there. But it's just, there are so many elements and just so much going on that it really takes some doing to breastfeed. But I think also, like Hillary said, everybody's so busy that it requires some extra underlying structure of support that isn't in every NICU. But some do have more than others. So it's something that, I hope continues to get better. But one of the things, that is happening now that is supporting breastfeeding mothers is that more hospitals are offering donor milk as standard of care. And that actually sends a message to moms that human milk is important and to keep up and keep trying, even if they aren't getting it, but also allows them stress levels to be lowered when perhaps your milk hasn't come in yet. It's delayed because you've had medical procedures yourself, or you are just extremely stressed, or for a number of reasons. And then when your baby can get safe donor milk instead of artificial milk, and it's very reassuring. And it's one piece to the not only keeping the babies healthy, but supporting the moms and the families.
So Amber, what type of support do milk banks provide moms that are going through the same struggles Hillary's going through, or that you and Sunny went through? What type of support would your milk bank provide?
Basically what we're doing is the hospitals are setting up their donor milk programs, and they order milk as needed from the milk bank. So they purchase it and they have it there when moms need it. So the moms, if their hospital is providing donor milk as standard of care, they don't have to directly contact the milk bank, and we don't know who's getting what. But what we're doing is screening donors and pasteurizing their milk, testing their milk, and making sure that it's safe to give to the hospitals. But we do provide milk to outpatients as well, and to moms who are in a hospital which doesn't provide it as standard of care, the hospitals that don't have donor milk programs yet. And in those cases, the mother will contact the milk bank directly, and we'll work with her to get her the milk she needs. And, oftentimes it is like Hillary's case where the mother's milk supply may be delayed or insufficient. And in this case, what's called bridge milk, is all that's needed. And, so they'll use donor milk for a relatively short amount of time, and it will just ensure that their baby is not exposed to, the many risks that can be involved with formula feeding a preemie, because their risk for, in particular, a disease called necrotizing enterocolitis jumps up by about 80% with a formula feed. So that is called NEC for short, and it's basically when the intestines get damaged or destroyed by infection, and a lot of times it requires surgery, and it can be fatal. So it's really a big deal when we can, even if we're not providing the milk on the long term, we're just providing it to make sure so that we're lowering that risk. We are working on doing more outreach within the hospitals to provide more support services, but really that's usually done by the hospital, and our main job is to get the milk to the babies. I personally, I came to work for the milk bank because of my experience, obviously, in the NICU. So I saw other families going through, terrible times of not being able to provide enough, and also moms who have to go back to work right away and, can't keep up the pumping schedule and all this. So I realized how important a milk bank can become and how important it is to get the hospitals to get on board.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much to everyone for being part of today's show and for sharing their experience. If you're a member of the Boob Group, then be sure to check out the bonus content for this episode where we'll discuss what the process is like to donate your breast milk.
Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
Okay, so before we wrap up our show today, we're going to read to you a comment that one of our listeners sent to us. As you know, we read all of the email that you sent us, and we try to catch up on Facebook as well. And it's just really important that we know how you feel about the show, and if something helped you, we certainly want to know that as well. And so this was an email that came from Christine, and this is what she wrote. She says, I want to relay my deep and heartfelt thanks for the breastfeeding guilt episode. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I don't know, it was probably about a month ago or so, we released an episode about the guilt a lot of moms have if they're unable to breastfeed their babies, or they're unable to breastfeed for as long as they want. And so that's what she's referring to. So she continues, my son is now 6 months old, and our breastfeeding relationship hasn't really ever been easy, but I've been able to keep him mostly breastfed. Over these months, breastfeeding and pumping have at times almost been like an obsession, causing me to sacrifice my sleep, self-care, and time with friends, family, as well as my husband. Only recently have I come to terms with loosening the quote-unquote chokehold breastfeeding and pumping have had on me. Of course, I am still feeling guilt, but this episode made me feel less lonely and more accepting of other feeding methods, of his feeding method, she says. Thank you very, very much. So again, from Christine, and if there's an episode that really, I don't know, resonated with you, that really helped you, we would love to hear that as well. We'd love to share these comments, and I'm glad that this helped you, Christine, and I hope it continues to help more mamas out there.
That wraps up our show for today. Thanks for listening to the Boob Group. Don't forget to check out our sister show, Preggy Pals for expecting parents, Newbies for newly postpartum moms, Parent Savers for moms and dads with toddlers, and Twin Talks for parents of multiples. This is the Boob Group, where moms know breast.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
How would you like to have your own show on the New Mommy Media Network? We're expanding our lineup and looking for great content. If you're a business or organization interested in learning more about our co-branded podcasts, visit our website at newmommymedia.com.
Did you know if your windows are bare, indoor temperatures can go up 20 degrees? Turn the temperature down with Blinds.com and get up to 50% off custom window treatments like solar roller shades and more during the Memorial Day Mega Sale. Whether you want to DIY it or have a pro handle everything, we've got you. Free samples, real design experts, and zero pressure. Just help when you need it. This is your last chance to shop up to 50% off site-wide during the Memorial Day Mega Sale at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
Hey, mamas. Don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording, so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there. Hey, mamas. Don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording, so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there.